Everybody's answer to this is wrong. And I mean almost everybody, including most of the trainers who post confident takes about it online. The standard line goes like this: Rottweiler hits harder, German Shepherd is smarter, so it depends what you want. That's the answer you'll get from 90% of comparison videos. And it's not really an answer. It's a shrug dressed up as analysis. I want to argue something more specific and slightly uncomfortable. In the situation people actually mean when they ask this question. Not a kennel demo, not a bite suit exercise, but a real moment where something is genuinely wrong in your house. The dog more likely to handle it correctly isn't the one with the stronger jaw. It's the one that can tell the difference between a threat and a false alarm. And on that specific measure, the gap between these two breeds is bigger than people assume. I'll get to the bite force numbers because people always want them, but they're not the part that decides anything. Quick history, because both breeds get reduced to a single image and neither image is accurate. The Rottweiler's actual job for most of its existence had nothing to do with guarding a house. In the town of Rottweil, in what's now Baden-Württemberg, butchers used these dogs to drive cattle to market and pull loaded meat carts back. Moving an animal that doesn't want to move requires a dog that takes a hit, holds its ground, and keeps applying pressure without backing off. That's not aggression in the way people picture it. It's persistence built into the muscle. The German Shepherd's job was almost the opposite kind of work. Captain Max von Stephanitz formalized the breed in 1899 specifically to manage flocks across unpredictable terrain with minimal direction from a human. A dog that needed constant instruction was useless for that job. It had to read situations on its own, distinguish a sheep wandering off from a sheep that's spooked by something real, and respond with the right amount of pressure, not too much, not too little. That specific skill, situational reading under pressure, is why the German military had 48,000 of them in service by 1914, working in trench warfare conditions that would break most animals. One breed was built to push through resistance. The other was built to judge what's actually happening before doing anything. Okay, the numbers, quickly, because I know somebody's going to skip ahead in the comments if I don't. Rottweiler bite force measures around 328 psi, according to the 2008 Journal of Anatomy study that tested jaw mechanics across 20 breeds using strain gauge methodology. German Shepherd comes in around 238 psi in the same study. That's a real, meaningful gap. The Rottweiler bites noticeably harder. Weight ranges overlap. Rottweilers run 95 to 130 pounds. Shepherds, 65 to 90. So on paper, in a straight physical matchup, the Rottweiler wins. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Here's where I think the comparison everyone's making falls apart. Almost nobody who's asking this question is actually picturing two dogs fighting each other. They're picturing a scenario at their own house, with their own family, where something has gone wrong and the dog needs to figure out what's actually happening and respond appropriately. That's a completely different test, and bite force tells you nothing about it. A 2016 study published in Applied Animal Behaviour Science ran trained protection dogs from multiple breeds through scenarios involving both neutral, unfamiliar people and people displaying genuine threat posture. German Shepherds scored highest on correctly distinguishing the two. They didn't treat every unfamiliar person the same way. They read the situation and adjusted. I went looking for an equivalent study, isolating Rottweilers specifically on that exact measure, and came up mostly empty, which itself tells you something, because if the data clearly favored the breed on discrimination, somebody would have published it by now. What does exist is a 2008 Duffy, Hu, and Serpol behavioral survey covering 6,000 owners across 30 breeds, and it found Rottweilers scoring high on both stranger-directed aggression and owner-directed aggression. That second number is the one that should give people pause. Most breeds with strong aggression toward outsiders are calm with their own household. The Rottweiler's profile doesn't separate those two categories as cleanly, which means the same dog handling a real threat correctly also requires more deliberate management around its own family than people expect when they buy one. That's not a breed flaw exactly. It's a breed that demands a specific kind of owner, and a lot of owners find that out after the fact. I want to be fair to the Rottweiler here, because I think the all-bite, no-brain framing some people use is lazy and wrong. A well-bred, well-socialized Rottweiler is not a blunt instrument. The breed's persistence, that cattle-driving trait, shows up as genuine composure in a lot of real situations. Trainers who work protection dogs consistently mention that Rottweilers hold a grip longer under resistance than most other breeds, which a 2009 paper in the Journal of Veterinary Behavior backed up with measured data on bite duration under physical pressure. If a confrontation goes past the first 90 seconds and turns into a sustained physical struggle, the Rottweiler's structural advantages start to matter a lot. So here's where I'll complicate my own argument, because I think pretending this is one-sided would be dishonest. If the scenario is a committed, prolonged physical confrontation, someone who isn't backing down, regardless of what the dog does, then the Rottweiler is not just about bite, it's about endurance and structure, and that changes the whole calculation. The Rottweiler's raw mass and bite endurance probably wins that specific fight. I said the discrimination question matters more for most real scenarios. I didn't say it's the only variable that exists. Working line versus show line changes this conversation for both breeds, and ignoring that split is how most comparison videos go wrong. The American show-line German Shepherd has drifted hard from working temperament over the last several decades. That dramatic sloped back you see in conformation rings is a recent cosmetic preference, and it correlates with higher rates of hip dysplasia. The Orthopedic Foundation for Animals puts it around 19% across the breed. A dog managing joint pain isn't going to perform the physical side of protection work the way its genetics theoretically allow. The working lines, the ones still run through Schutzhund trials that have existed since 1901, kept the original temperament and structure intact because the testing never stopped. Rottweilers haven't split as dramatically between show and working populations, mostly because the breed never became a show ring obsession the way German Shepherds and a few other breeds did. That's actually one of the only points in this whole comparison where the Rottweiler has a structural advantage by default. There's less genetic drift to account for. A guy named Pete Okafor, who runs a protection dog training operation outside Charlotte, North Carolina, told me something a while back that stuck with me more than any study I've read on this topic. He said most people buying either of these breeds for home protection are solving an emotional problem, not a tactical one. They want to feel safer. The dog that actually makes them safer and the dog that makes them feel safer aren't always the same animal, and most people never find out which one they bought until it's 3 in the morning and something's actually wrong. I don't fully know what to do with that observation, except agree with it. So which one wins when it actually matters? If it actually matters, means a sustained, committed physical confrontation with someone who won't quit, probably the Rottweiler, on structure and endurance alone. If it means correctly figuring out that the noise downstairs is your teenager sneaking back in at 1 a.m. and not an intruder, then doing the right thing either way without you having to manage the outcome, that's the German Shepherd, and it's not particularly close. Most nights, for most households, the second scenario is the one that's actually going to happen.